Hi folks, this is going to be our first attempt at a travelogue video. And in this one we're going to suppose that you've made the smart decision to come to North Georgia and to spend a long weekend near the beautiful and historic town of Dahlonega. While we will be giving you a glimpse of some of those things that you can find easily on the travel and tourism sites about Dahlonega, we will be mixing in a few pro tips that only we as insiders can pass along to you. Now, assuming you're headed toward Dahlonega from a jumping off point of Atlanta, you will probably go up Georgia 400. Also US 19, according to your GPS, you will pass through the city of Dawsonville on the way up there. Now, Dawsonville has, of course, as we've said before, a lot of history that has to do with NASCAR and racing, but right off 400, what it's mostly famous for are the North Georgia premium outlets. There is some good shopping here, folks. Tammy and I, well, we've bought several pairs of shoes from the outlets. You can get name brand shoes at great prices there, folks. Should you decide at this point to travel west on 53, we'll take you deeper into the heart of NASCAR country in Dawsonville, and then a portion of this same 53 will become Apple Alley in Ellijay, Georgia, and will lead you eventually on to Blue Ridge, where the excursion train waits to take you to Tennessee and to see the Georgia backcountry between here and there. And on the way to anywhere, folks, here in North Georgia on a Saturday afternoon, you are likely to encounter one or two boiled peanut stands, even on busy 400. Political advertisements eventually give way to those four boiled peanuts as we are directed to yet the next stand. Here in North Georgia, we have peanut chefs. You will encounter all kinds of flavors. You might find jalapeno, you might find mango, but boiled peanuts are a staple here in peanut country. In fact, the number one cash crop in Georgia is not the peach, after which our state is nicknamed. It is the peanut. And here where 400 stops being 400 and you would make the turn into downtown Dahlonega, we are instead for now going to continue straight. The same road that you have been on will now be called Georgia 115, and we will follow it a little deeper into the area around Dahlonega. If we decided to stay this course long enough, we would eventually end up in Helen, Georgia, or maybe Blairsville or Hiawassee. Now, just as we cross this intersection, you will notice within not even half a mile, we start entering country. We start entering the woods, and the scenery just becomes beautiful. The further we travel down some of these back roads, the squatchier it will get. A significant part of this kind of traveling is the drive, folks. Once upon a time, before interstate highway systems, folks would take highways like these from point A to point B. And the first pro tip we could give you today is if you're visiting somewhere touristy, if you're visiting, say, Orlando or Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, look for those highway corridors that may once have been the way into town that no longer are. It is likely along those ways that you will find some of the coolest roadside attractions. You see more boiled peanuts up ahead, folks. They're everywhere. Now, as we come up to this next intersection, which you could loop back to 19 and get back to the city of Dahlonega, eventually we are actually going to go right and continue along 115. And at this intersection, you will find another Georgia backroad staple, the barbecue and biscuit joint. These are usually found on the main highways right outside of any of our touristy towns. You see, this one is very popular. It is a Saturday morning, and the folks are already gathering for their goodies. On 115, just a few miles from this barbecue and biscuit place, we are going to find our next pro tip site. It is not going to show up on anyone's brochures, but it is a place that Tammy and I feel like we have to stop almost every time we come to the area. It is the Old Crow Soap Company, and as we approach, you will notice very quickly that singular thing other than soap for which this place is famous. Bigfoot is big here in North Georgia, and at Old Crow Soap, the proprietor's husband was born and raised in Fouke, Arkansas, and if you're familiar with Bigfoot lore at all, you will recognize Fouke as the home of the legend of Boggy Creek. There's a lot of cool things other than just soap and Bigfoot in this store, all kind of little country cabin decor. Once we're here, I often end up having to beg Tammy to leave. The owner is a hoot. She's a lot of fun to talk to, and you get the distinct impression that she's running this store as much for the fun of it as she is for the profit, but she does make a good profit, especially on Bigfoots that she has in all sizes. You see here Tammy in front of one that I believe is about 11 feet tall. The Old Crow Soap itself is highly prized here in North Georgia, and people drive from a great distance to get their stockpile to last them a while. And it's right off of 115. You can't miss it on your way to Helen, Georgia. Our next pro tip destination will take us about 2 miles further down 115 from Old Crow. That's about as far as we're going to go before we turn around and head back toward Dahlonega. But this next place also will not show up any travel brochures. It presents a truly unique shopping experience. And if you want to buy souvenirs to take back to wherever you're from to prove to folks there that you were indeed in Deliverance country, you can't beat this next stop. You'll see advertisements for it along the way, just as if it were a giant boiled peanut stand, but it is so much more than that. You'll know you're almost there when you pass this trailer. Every time we pass this way, there is a new message painted on the side. And here we are rolling up to our next destination, looking for all the world like another indoor farmer's market. The Tomato House is actually a kind of holdover from the pre-interstate days when roadside variety stores existed to give folks a chance to stretch their legs and to separate them from their money. Outdoor statuary has long been a status symbol here in the South among certain folks, and the bigger and the gaudier it is, the more well-off a person is often assumed to be. Bears are very popular in North Georgia, and mushrooms. I did not know until recently, apparently, that giraffes were a thing. Angels and odd heads. Wizards. Saints. And still more giraffes. Your yard does not have to go naked, folks, if you stop here at Tomato House. There's all kinds of bird houses. Your birds can live in the lap of luxury. Step right up, folks. We got what you need right inside. In my opinion, you will find more kitsch per square inch in this store than anywhere else in America. You literally have to turn sideways to walk down the aisles in this store. So crowded is it. Look at the little trinkets you can take home. It's amazing. Even Albert's here. You can even get napkins for any occasion. For instance, if you're having that cocktail party you're inviting Bauhaus over for. Salt and pepper shakers are a must for any souvenir store. All kinds of night lights for the classy home. A lot of this, I think, is geared toward furnishing cabins. There are a lot of cabins in the area, as you can well imagine. You can even buy a small voodoo doll to watch over you. They have them for all kinds of folks, in all kinds of situations. I couldn't help but notice this one down below for the shopaholic. I thought about getting it for Tammy, but then I thought maybe I'd be better off with it. Everyone needs some gorillas for their house. I wouldn't have thought of it, but now that I see it, I'm sure that I absolutely need one. There's Tammy hot on the trail. She loves this place. She would not let me buy this jackass toilet paper dispenser for our bathroom, as much as I know it would class up the joint. Look at all this stuff, folks. You can find anything. If you have to take something home to someone up north and prove to them that you were here in the South, how about a picture frame with a hillbilly bathing in a wash tub, or one laying on top of a giant moonshine jug? She also wouldn't let me have this deer antler toilet paper holder. Nothing but the best, folks. Shotgun weddings, I don't know if they're still a thing. Designated drivers, they are. You need your shot glasses if you're going on a souvenir hunt. You probably need those for after. I can promise you, folks, these candles did not smell like fish. Where else can you find bourbon-scented candles right next to fairy lights? Right across from a wall of purses and flip-flops. Every time we've been to Tomato House, there has been a line waiting at this little ice cream parlor inside. And yes, you can actually purchase tomatoes and other kinds of produce at Tomato House. Leaving Tomato House along 115, we will head back in the direction of Dahlonega, but we're actually on our way to the Dahlonega section of Georgia's wine country. Now here is where another pro tip comes in. Your GPS might guide you along the quickest route from A to B, but there is ample signage out here leading everyone to the wineries. If you just follow those signs, you are going to be taken along roads that will prove to you why folks in Atlanta who don't want to drive all the way to the Smokies but want a taste of the experience will instead come up to the North Georgia mountains for the weekends. It is the same Appalachian mountain chain. Atlantans know they will get a lot of the same kinds of views with a lot less of the driving. Following winery signage, taking yet more back roads. We're out here in cabin rental country. There's some pretty places out here, and generally speaking, you're going to get your cabin rentals here in North Georgia a little cheaper than you will, say, in the Smoky Mountains or one of the more heavily visited tourist areas. There are roadside vistas like this one that's like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting. Coming up here, you're going to see where I slowed down the video a little bit to give you an idea of the winery signage. There were tons of cars behind us. It was a beautiful day. A lot of folks out even on the back roads, but as you get a glimpse here, there's wineries that way, wineries the other ways, wineries in every direction up here. And this is just one part of Georgia's wine country, just the part around Dahlonega. Around Helen, there's its own section of wine country. Around Blue Ridge, even around the northern parts of Gwinnett County, which is closer to Atlanta. See some beautiful little churches out here. We're always passing little churches. More indications of wineries up ahead. Again, coming up, I will slow down the video so you will get an idea just how extensive the signage is. And I keep bringing this up. GPS is a handy tool, but sometimes if you follow it strictly, you're going to miss some of the best parts of your journey. It's just, look at the mountains coming up. It's just beautiful out here. More views of the mountains. Another beautiful little church with its own little cemetery. An abandoned building coming up here being reclaimed by nature. One of the things that will inevitably remind drivers in the area of the Smoky Mountains is the number of curves you will encounter on these mountain roads. They can be fun and they can be challenging. I enjoyed them a lot more, I think, when I was younger than I do now. But a lot of bikers like to get out here and ride these curvy mountain roads. Can't beat those views, folks. Now, coming up here, you may remember a while back we did a Roadside America app adventure where we visited an Indian princess's grave that was on the side of the road. Folks add rocks to this grave as a memorial, and it was a construction site for a roundabout at the time. Only a couple of weeks later, and you see where I was standing, where there was construction equipment, there is now road. It won't be long now before Trelita's grave is completely encircled by road. We're almost to our next destination, Wolf Mountain Winery. It has a fantastic restaurant. The wolf theming is prevalent throughout the property. It, of course, has a tasting room, and most of our wineries have some kind of tour. They're usually free of their wineries, their cellars, sometimes even the vineyards themselves. In fact, as you see, we're approaching the main buildings. You have to drive through the vineyards at Wolf Mountain. Neither Tammy nor I are really into wine, but we are certainly into free tours, especially if those tours are in beautiful locations. Now we're approaching the winery buildings themselves. Look at those views of the mountains. Here's the wedding chapel. You can have special events there of any kind, not just weddings. And you see today they're just allowing folks to go up there and drink their wine. All over the property is a tasting room, folks. You can buy your wine and take it anywhere on this property. There's some hiking trails. It is really great. Look at the restaurant. Imagine the views from up there. Tammy and I have never eaten there, but we have now penciled that in on our schedule of places to go. The beautiful North Georgia mountains. That's your dinner show. We actually started to walk up there and show you the view, but there is no way up other than the stairs, and since we weren't drinking wine today or eating, we just decided to skip it. Now we're leaving Wolf Mountain. Cheers. Headed back out on the road. Our next stop is going to be downtown Dahlonega itself, the heart of the action for Dahlonega. We're not going to dwell on Dahlonega downtown a lot. We've done several videos here, but we'll just give you a quick glance around for those of you who haven't seen any of those or don't really want to go back and look at any of them. There are a number of inns and beds and breakfasts right off the town square. Bed and breakfasts are big in North Georgia as well. Many of them are owned by at least one chef. Here is the famous gold diving bell, the only one of its kind. One of those great ideas that never really panned out. We have done a Roadside America app adventure about this as well. If you're interested in the strange history of the gold diving bell, feel free to go back and look at that one. Another little inn right off the square. There are local ordinances against either building or destroying anything in this immediate area. So if you choose to stay at one of the inns or the bed and breakfast, you will be staying in a building that is probably at least 150 years old, maybe even more. If you Google haunted Georgia or haunted places in Georgia, among the specific buildings or places where buildings were that you'll find on many lists, you will almost always find two entire towns mentioned. One of them, of course, being Savannah, the other being Dahlonega. Dahlonega is a very haunted city, and here at Spirit's Tavern upstairs is where the ghost tours kick off from. Spirit's Tavern has a double meaning. This building where the tavern and the ghost tours kick off is supposedly one of the more haunted buildings here in Dahlonega. So if you're interested in ghosts, you can pretty much turn on your meter or your detector at any place in this town at night, and you might just pick up some activity. I am not sure whether I feel comforted by a skeleton showing me this sign. Dahlonega has a storied and rough history, dating all the way back to the original Georgia Gold Rush and to the Indian Removal Act that resulted in the Trail of Tears. So if the paranormal is your thing, there is as much haunted history here in Dahlonega as your dark little heart's desire. Coming up on the Fudge Factory, which is currently closed. This is a landmark in town. Folks give directions based on the Fudge Factory. Even the sidewalks are old in Dahlonega. Some of these bricks are original, some of them are replacements. But they have gone out of their way to try to keep everything as close to original as they can in this town. There's souvenirs. A lot of it has that sassy little southern flavor. As you'll see here with these towels. I'm not sure that I would want them in my bathroom, but again, this has been our first attempt at producing something like a genuine travelogue. If this one works out, we might try to do some others from around the Helen area, which is a very popular destination, around the Blue Ridge area, incorporating in with a lot of the stuff that you would get out of your travel brochures, a few pro tips, the things that we've just learned from being citizens of Georgia. Paul Thomas here makes the best American chocolate I've ever tasted. There's a lot of galleries, a lot of food choices here in Dahlonega. The courthouse here is now home to the Gold Museum. Also have done a video about that if you're interested. It is also among the most haunted places in Dahlonega. And though I can't say that I thought I saw a ghost or heard a ghost, I did get the distinct impression of being observed the entire time I was in this building. It was a courthouse at one time. A lot of sentences were handed down here that resulted in loss of life. Of course, the general store, we've made repeated trips in here in our videos. We won't dwell on it either. Just a glimpse inside, the kind of things you can get. The required bear. And there's wine everywhere. Another inn just off the square. This one literally just steps away from all the activity. This is one of Tammy's favorite places, a little candle shop. right next to a cool little vintage music store. To our YouTube family that usually watch our videos, I know this one has been a little long and different, and that was by intention. The attempt here was to produce a document that might be beneficial to a traveler actually considering making a trip here to our North Georgia mountains. Along the Chestatee River here, not only can you pan for gold like the prospectors of old did, you can also rent tubes, kayaks, and canoes. There are all kinds of activities available in the area, from the leisurely to the action sports. So come along and visit us here in North Georgia. Until the next time, this is Mike saying bye.